So, for this segment of the Senstennial Podcast, we want to focus on the defensive side of the house. Now, I don't know. This one could be maybe better, maybe worse than the forward section that we just did. So I guess we'll see how this goes. But let's kick off with Bennett this time. And Bennett, there's been some ups, there's been some downs, and give us a bit of both for you when analyzing this Sens defensive core.
Yeah, I mean I think the ups and the downs are all fairly self-evident to anyone who's watched the Senators this season. To start with the positives, I mean, obviously we're seeing the Thomas Chabot revenge tour right now. It's been really good to see him playing at the level that we all knew that he was capable of. Uh, Not only, contributing offensively and looking confident, walking that blue line, but also, breaking up plays and putting in a shift defensively in the way that, again, we expected him to be able to do. We know that he had some work done in the off season on, a lingering injury, and I think the initial signs are that that's had a positive impact. And of course, we've discussed before the positive impacts that pairing him with Nick Jensen has had. Jensen has also looked solid. He jumps up in a play when there's an opportunity for it. He's responsible in his own end. I really don't have a lot of negative things to say about either of those guys. Um, Jake Sanderson has struggled a bit this year. I mean, he started off pretty strong. His point total is respectable, but he's not getting generating a lot of anything at 5-on-5. And he is pretty heavily minus, which isn't great to see in, you're a young defenseman stepping into the limelight as the team's number one for the first time. Now in his defense, he has a rotating cast of defensive partners. Artem has been in and out of the lineup, now currently out and probably out for a long time, which means sometimes we've seen Hamonic in that position. We all know what Hamonic is and how exposed he is when he is on the ice at all, let alone on the top pairing kind of role. Um, and so having his continued presence in the team is obviously a negative. Uh, and Clevin and JBD have looked good at times, not so good at other times. Clevin has had some really rough games in there. JBD has been kind of okay this year, but again, it's a question of, but wouldn't it be better to just have someone who's better all the time there? And so I think that the decor, we're kind of stuck in the same limbo that we've been stuck in for the last few years, which is it's always kind of like going around in circles. Like one player might take a step up and might improve their game, and then another person might take a step down at the same time. So you're at like a net neutral in terms of whether the core is improving or not. And we've seen how exposed this team gets whenever Zub is out injured for a period of time. Happens every year. Zub is obviously, I think we can say at this point, very injury prone. Uh, and much as we love our, you know, quiet, head down, do the work, shut down defensive, Russian Russian little guy out there, we can't really rely on him to play 82 games. And I think it's getting increasingly sus to have him penciled in as our kind of like top right hand D or second top right hand D if he's just not going to be there, right? The saying goes, the best ability is availability, and Zub hasn't really been able to do that for the team the last couple of seasons. He's generally pretty good when he's on. Like even he has had some rough patches when he has been playing for the team this year. Again, sort of typical of all of the defense outside of Chabot and Jensen. But he's not playing. And when he's not playing, it means Hamonic is in the lineup, and that kind of just like drags the whole team down to his level, right? Um, I know Steos is reported to be strongly in the market for another defenseman. I think on two perhaps would not be remiss, unless if we're thinking that Chuck is going to step into the role, starting from game one next year, right? In that case, maybe like one guy with a couple years of team control to balance things out a little bit. and then see where Yekemchuk slots in next year. But if you think at all that Yekemchuk might need a little bit of time to cook in the AHL, I think you got to go out and get two guys. One so that Hamonic can be like forever cast into the shadow realm, and another for all the times where Zub is injured, so that again Hamonic stays in the shadow realm where he belongs.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the bigger things coming into the season was Hamnick being on an NMC for, one more year, and not being able to even be sent down. He has to stay on the NHL lineup. If they want to move him, they'll have to ask him to waive his no move clause. Like, it's a tough situation. I really thought that they would buy him out, but then again, I then looked back and was like, wait, they hired Travis Green as a coach. There was no way that they were going to buy out Travis Hamonic. So
and Staios and him were teammates.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So that's
when the old boys go clubbing.
Yeah.
There's
the
always
clubbing
one
goes old boys.
Yeah, there's always one guy who a coach, falls in love with, or everyone always references with Guy Boucher. It was Tom Pyatt. He could do no wrong in Guy Boucher's eyes, and for us now with this team, it's Travis Hamonic. And I don't, I think what's the most painful thing about it is, like you said, Bennett, there's been injury issues that were foreseeable coming into the season. And you looked at that defensive depth and you're like, well, they don't have Brandstrom anymore on the right side. Like JBD, we didn't really know if he was going to be NHL playable or serviceable. And then you look past that and you have like Matt and Paolo and really not much else. Like Toure, but he's not an NHLer.
Yeah,
and
then,
Gannett. Gannett, who, I'd like to see a shot in a depth role, but he's not going to step in and play a season for you. And then, you have Yakimchuk, who you sent back to the CHL. I would have liked to have seen him for, at least a handful of games in Ottawa. And maybe he could have proved his value and stayed on the team. And who knows where Ottawa would be now with him if he had stayed on. But to me, it's just one of those self-inflicted wounds where I don't know, like it feels like they should have done a little bit more there. They did a lot to bolster the bottom six. Now I know we previously talked about the issues there, but it feels like once Nick Jensen was acquired, that to Staios and the rest of the front office, they're like, we're good. We traded out Chikrin, we got a right-hand shot, and now we're good to go. I would have liked to have seen them like pursue, Matt Roy in free agency and really solidify that right side, because then we wouldn't be having this conversation. that would be really nice. But anyway, I'll pass it over to Matt. And Matt, for you, how are you feeling with the Sens decor?
Well, it not only seems like it's a personnel issue, it's starting to look more and more like it's a skill issue. And I'm seeing lackadaisical play by defensemen, like a lot of Jake Sanderson boneheaded moves. I feel like he's trying to do too much. And he is overcompensating for playing with a lesser partner. And if you want to hang one of the many hats of Steve Staios, hang it on the fact that he kept Travis Hamonic, and it essentially forced Travis Green to play Hamonic in these types of roles. You had a rookie defenseman or a over the hill defenseman who had a pretty good career. Like, odds are you're going to play the vet, and like Hamonic is a terrible defenseman. He is not good. He is one of the worst defensemen, if not players, in the league. And he is somehow on our first pairing. And I remember talking about this at the start of the season. When Zub goes down, what happens? And I said, hey, just a reminder, Travis Hamonic played a lot with Quinn Hughes. And that was during when Quinn Hughes was really, really bad. Like Steve Stais has a lot to answer for on this one. He made one move that was a defenseman swap, and like Nick Jensen and Thomas Chabot, as far as I'm concerned, are outside of this. They've played exceptionally well this season. Then Travis Green split them up and then put Jensen with Clevin on the third pair, which I don't know about you, but I would want my best right-handed defenseman playing with my best left-handed defenseman in Jake Sanderson, but Travis Green just seemingly doesn't think that's an important thing to do. And that's another thing. Travis Green is very frustrating, like DJ Smith. Like the system is there. Like it's a much better structure. The team has a lot better habits, but we're seeing a guy who should not be playing top 2 minutes, playing them consistently.
Yeah.
And for what? Like
NHL
we're losing
coaches,
games.
I mean,
like
yeah, like NHL coaches, many of whom were players, they have this sort of like just uncritical love of like aging veteran players. And I'm sure that if you were to ask the other 31 fan bases in the league, they would say something similar. Like I'm sure they all have their whipping boys, whether it's
yeah,
like some fourth line plug or some third liner who's somehow getting first pairing minutes. It's but it's truly bizarre. And I mean, I don't know, I can't maybe speak to as many other sports, but I think the NHL has this what I think is almost unique just love of that idea of veterancy. And they love the
yep,
idea, like the romance of like guys who have like been there and done it and stuff. And like I get that like you always want some players like that in a locker room, but you don't need more than like one, right? Like, the team
Whoa,
has
whoa,
Claude
whoa.
Giroux.
I want at least 15 veterans on my roster, baby.
It's like, if you want the grizzled older player who's done it all, but who can still contribute, that's Claude Giroux. It's like Travis Hamonic is like a guy who's like you said, Nate, he's had an okay career, good for him. But he fucking sucks now. And he
yeah,
should not be playing games like at all.
yeah,
And the fact that he continues to, I mean, like, listen, like, fine, you can't waive him. Fine, you can't send him down. Fine, you probably can't trade him. Like, show some accountability and show some friggin' balls, man, and just bench him. Like,
that's yeah,
it's like, I get that him and Green played together, and I get the Green liked him in Vancouver or whatever. But like, there has got to be someone in this organization with like a sane bone in their body who must be like banging their head against the wall somewhere at CTC. Like, get this guy off the friggin' ice. Like,
And that's what interests me, like where Sean Tierney fits into the front office. And maybe I don't want to get on a huge side tangent about this, and we'll make sure we finish our conversation on the defensive group. But it does very much interest me how those conversations go, because it seems like even though guys like Travis Green, say he's about analytics, and the guy like Sean Tierney was hired in the front office and worked closely with Stais and Anlauer. Let's not forget that when he was with the Bulldogs. Like, it just feels like there's not enough. What do you call that? Like, his impact on the organization, to me, is not really being felt as much.
yeah. I'm gonna just say that I don't think they give a shit. Like,
Yeah, you're
yeah,
putting
like
it bluntly, and that's fair.
yeah.
Like, it
I mean,
does
you can
feel
look
like he's on the
at
outskirts.
Brandstrom.
Yeah.
He had good analytics. He passed the eye test. He would have been a perfectly serviceable third pairing defenseman. He would have been a massive upgrade on Tyler Clevin. He's having a very good season in Vancouver. Let him go because he's small.
Well, also,
They
like, I can appreciate his contract
no,
being.
and absolutely, I get it.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
problem is like you had JBD who had the best expected goals per 60 or like reduced goals per 60 of any player in the entire NHL sitting for Travis fucking Hamonic. Why? Oh, no, they don't care about analytics, dude. They hired him because, like, yeah, they can be like, oh, yeah, no, it shows us what we need to see. No, like, that's it. They're not doing anything with it
I also
because,
feel like the idea, like analytics doesn't really have anything even to do with this. Like, you don't need to like look
no,
at charts or spreadsheets to be like, oh, I don't think Hamonic is very good. Like, he's
Yeah.
out there every night, like getting exposed. Obviously, like you
Yeah.
can see it on TV with like the sound muted. Like, you don't
yeah,
need to hear someone tell you
I
that
can see it
Hamonic is
on the
bad.
radio.
Yeah, like it's, like you don't even have to be paying attention. Like if you notice that the Sens have been, stuck in their own end for like a few more seconds than they should be, and you start to kind of like worryingly like look up from your phone to see the TV, and you're like, oh, I bet Hamonic is on the ice, and he's there. He's always there.
Yeah,
Like, this guy, like it's where offense goes to die on his stick because he has never met a shot that he wouldn't just slap shot 2 feet to the right of the near post. And he can't put together one single pass, and all he knows how to do is like block shots. And like, guess what? If you're blocking a shot, you're already like losing. Like, you're already losing the encounter that's happening on the ice if you're being forced into a position where you have to like lie down and let a puck hit you, right?
But
yeah.
I
Like,
will say his penalty kill metrics look good because he blocks all those shots.
yeah, exactly. It's like, like if you want to like wheel him out for like 4 minutes a game to do that, like I still don't think that
What
would
if,
be
yeah,
a very wise use of anyone's time or money, but like it shouldn't be rocket science to explain to someone like, hey, like Hamonic's bad and he makes our team worse every night. Like, unless if Travis Green is literally like incapable of analyzing the sport of hockey, which I have to assume he isn't because that's his job, then he has to know that Hamonic sucks. And the only reason he's playing him is because either Staios has said, what else
what
can
do
we
you want me to
do?
do?
Or he just feels bad for the guy and
Yeah,
doesn't want to tell his old friend and teammate, like, time to hang him up, my guy.
I want to kind of finish on one point, and it's on Jake Sanderson. As we talked about, like his play has regressed. But I kind of want to point to, a defenseman we just talked about in Quinn Hughes, and a defenseman like Moritz Seider. And then looking at defensemen like Cale Makar and Miro Heiskanen and Adam Fox. What's the difference there? They have a partner who isn't a liability. You have to you play as a pairing and not as a single person. And I think when you're dragged down by another player so significantly, your play just takes a massive hit. Like, sure, Seider is a Red Wing, and we hate the Red Wings, but like he's a good defenseman, and he was typically playing with Justin Holl or like Ben Sherratt. Quinn Hughes was playing with Travis Hamonic for a long time, and then they got a good pairing defenseman. Josh Morrissey in Winnipeg was not very good, and then he got a partner in Dylan DeMello. Whereas like Heiskanen and Adam Fox and Cale Makar, like Colorado just got Devin Taves for nothing, and he gets to play with Cale Makar.
Yeah.
And like good players make good players even better. And Nick Jensen is a good player, so he's making Thomas Chabot even better. And I said that right from the get-go. The best acquisition we made was Nick Jensen because it's going to make Thomas Chabot again. But the fact is Jake Sanderson is playing with his head firmly below water, and all we're seeing is the rest of his flow and maybe a bit of his ears. But the point is,
Nothing can
that
hide those ears.
no, and we love him, but god damn it, Travis Hamonic is the bane of the Senstennial Podcast.
I feel like that he could be the bane of a lot of podcasts in this market, but valid. On that note, I think we can call an end to the defensive core part of the podcast and move on to the final chapter.